And good afternoon. It's Monday afternoon after the weekend. On the East Coast, it's afternoon. Of course, you guys out on the left coast are just getting the day started. So, again, just as usual, whatever time zone you're in, I hope you're having a good day, good start to the day so far. And just to let you know that we're coming to you live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you very much for listening. Not only are we at I-95, but we're also on Blackjack TV on the East Coast. We're also on Mile High Radio out in Colorado, milehighradio.com. You can hear us there as well. And of course, we're also podcasting on most of the major podcast platforms as well, such as Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify. We're there for you. So anytime you want to listen to the show, whether it's live or later on in the day, all you have to do is jump onto one of those platforms and you can hear the entire show. So once again, thank you very much for listening. It's Monday. We're ready to start another new week as far as sports betting is concerned. We had a great weekend this weekend, a lot of baseball going on. And of course, baseball will still be the king for the next week anyway. And then once we start getting into the NBA playoffs and the National Hockey League playoffs, we're going to spend more time talking about them as well, trying to bring you up to date as to how well they're doing. But for the time being, we're still talking baseball, but we're going to talk some NFL today because Wednesday, the schedule is going to come out. And of course, if you're looking to bet the game totals as far as the futures platforms are concerned, it's a good idea to start and wait and think about what they're going to be doing on Wednesday. If you haven't made your selections yet, you might as well just sit back and relax, watch the scheduling on Wednesday, because the schedule will be crucial in many reasons for why you should determine which team you're going to pick and what their over under as far as game totals is concerned. So if you haven't done it yet, wait till Wednesday, see how that comes out, and take it from that point on. In the meantime, we're going to go into those as well. And of course, as usual, we're going to talk about what happened yesterday in the world of sports as far as betting is concerned. I know that most of you more than likely know most of the scores of what went on yesterday, but we're trying to pay more attention to not only the scores, but as to how the underdogs did, how the over-unders are doing, how the favorites are doing, kind of give you some statistical data so that you know which way to go. Because, the one thing about our show, I talk to people, they're about sometimes I'm watching 5 baseball games on the weekend with my grandson. He plays usually 2 games on Saturday and then usually at least 1 game on Sunday in the tournament. And if he wins that game, he goes on to play another game. And if they win that game, they play another game. So I'm seeing sometimes up to 5 games of baseball on a weekend, which I totally enjoy. Don't get me wrong. I love every minute of it. But so I'm really into baseball right now. And of course, getting to talk to people that know what I do for a living and what I do with the show. We talk, the fathers and some of the mothers, but mainly the fathers from the various players on the teams will talk to me. We'll talk about betting, what we like about certain situations. And of course, they're the ones that came up with the idea that why don't you come up with a newsletter, kind of give us a heads up ahead of time, because, they have jobs, they have things to do. Once they get to work, they have no access to find out what is going on as far as line movement is concerned with the teams. And they do want to make some action. They want to play games. And so they said, can we find out about what the lines are, how the pros, what direction they're going? And I said, well, I'll see if we could try to put something together, some sort of a newsletter or something where we would email to you a list of the games that are on tap as far as the line movements and the pros, which way they're going, so that, if you're thinking of betting one of those games, well, you can possibly get involved in it. So that's where that germinated from. And of course, we got some emails from people as well asking for the same type of information. So we're working on it right now. We're trying to put things together. So if you have any interest whatsoever, give us a ring. Very simply, all you have to do is send an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. All you got to do is say, yes, I'm interested, and then we'll kind of keep you in a file, and we'll see what happens. If it does develop into a newsletter, we'll get in touch with you, see if you're still interested at that point in time. Once again, the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. So in the meantime, though, let's now take a look and see what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned in the world of the major sports, the National Hockey League, NBA, and, of course, Major League Baseball. First of all, to start off in hockey, the favorites and the underdogs, they finally split 1-1. We were talking about this the other day, telling you how the favorites have really dominated the National Hockey League so far this season. But over the past couple of days, we've noticed more of the underdogs are starting to come in and catching up. But they're still far off, and yesterday they were 1-1. You had the Blackhawks, they were a plus 100 on the money line. They upset the Stars 4-2. And the Flames, as a minus 180, routed the Senators 6-1. Those were two scores, one underdog and one favorite. The overs went 2-0 yesterday, but the unders, they're still ahead. They're about 50.4% over the season so far. That's 407 to 400. Meanwhile, the first period unders, they split 1-1, with the first period unders leading by 51%. 51% on the season. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the favorites and the dogs, they split also, straight up and against the spread as well. You know, sometimes you'll see a straight up number much higher when you take a look at the against the spread number, and it's totally different direction. This way, equal. 4-4 straight up, 4-4 against the spread. The upsets were by the Heat, 1-point dogs against the Celtics. The Knicks, 7.5-point dogs against the Clippers. The Pelicans, 3-point dogs against the Hornets. And the Lakers, 6.5-point dogs against the Suns. How many times do you think you're going to hear the Lakers getting points? Okay. Of course, injuries come into play. Things change. At the beginning of the season, everybody was laying odds and money that the Lakers were going to, first of all, repeat with the title, but most of all, also the fact that, hey, they're going to win that Western Division. Now it kind of looks a little different. The favorites still lead, however, in basketball. They're at 51.3%. And, of course, the unders, who did 4-3-1 yesterday with a push on the Oklahoma City-Sacramento game, the number there was 224. The overs, they're 509 to 500, which is just a little over 50% in the NBA. Now, in Major League Baseball, the favorites went 8-4 yesterday. So the favorites reigned in Major League Baseball. The Phillies and the Braves, they closed as a pick'em, but of course you had upsets by the Pirates. They were plus 148 on the money line against the Cubs. The Brewers are plus 127 against the Marlins. The Rays were plus 108 against the A's. The Angels, a big plus 167 on the money line against, you said it, the Dodgers. Another situation out in Los Angeles. Things must be going crazy out there. They got some of the greatest teams to play this season. The Dodgers with that lineup that they have, LA, the Lakers with the lineup that they have, okay? But because of injuries and situations come into play, here you have two teams that were out-and-out odds-on leaders, okay, are really falling behind. Like I said, so when you bet against the Dodgers, you're going to get some big, heavy money. Here was plus 167 on the money line. Meanwhile, the favorites still lead, and the unders also went yesterday 8-5. But the overs, they still lead as far as baseball is concerned. They're at 50.1%. So that's a rundown on what happened yesterday as far as betting was concerned in the world of the major sports that we're talking about. So we're going to take our first break. And if you've listened to the show before, you have an idea. You know, we take 3 breaks on the show. Each one is of about 1 minute duration. Then we get right back into action. So when we do come back, there are 3 games that are on tap for today that we're going to take a look at as far as the line movement is concerned, and of course where the pros are going. And that's the Reds against the Pirates, Red Sox against the Orioles, and the Rangers against the Giants. All 3 teams begin with the letter R. Anyway, that's just a coincidence. So we're going to take our break and we'll be back into the zone in just 60 seconds. And welcome back. Here we go again. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcasts such as Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. We're there. And also on Blackjack TV on the East Coast. And of course, for our friends out in the Colorado area, of course, throughout the United States as well, you have milehighradio.com. So that's the story there. So we took a look at what happened yesterday in the 3 major sports that are going on right now. So now it's Monday. And of course, time to talk about baseball once again. But, you know, yesterday, before we get into the 3 games that we're talking about today, we saw that the unders went 8-5 yesterday. We talked about that. It also coincides with a very interesting and I would call it an intriguing trend that we've seen so far this season as far as Sunday games go and the unders on those days. On Sundays, right now, the unders are at 58.2%, which means that if you just bet the unders on Sunday this season, you'd be up 10 units. Again, a unit is depending on what you bet. If you're betting $1,000, you'd be up 10,000. If you're betting $100, you'd be up $1,000. So that's the way you kind of look at it. Plus 10 units. Now, why is this interesting, or why it's kind of notable, say? Because on every other day of the week, the under is just 48.2%. If you did that way, you'd be minus 28 units on the other side of the fence. Now, I know this is a small sample. It's very small. But we'll have to keep an eye. We're going to track it to see if it's something we should take a look at and make close attention to. However, the theory behind it really does make some sense. Some people think that Sundays are getaway days, or as teams are wrapping up their latest series, they're looking to move on to their next city. Now, meanwhile, even though this kind of mind frame is set, okay, and it really contributes to an environment that benefits the pitchers over the hitters as well. Or, you know, who knows, maybe the umpires are employing a bigger strike zone because it's getaway day for them also. But either way you want to look at it, the data shows that Sundays are for the unders And that's at least for now. So not saying that's what you should jump on, okay? Just kind of bring it to your attention. It's just something else that you might be want to take a look at on Sunday if you're betting the over-unders, or if you're not certain whether or not you want to bet a certain game. So think about it this way. If it's Sunday and you're kind of not sure which way you want to go, if you think about it, you say, you know what, on Sunday, this is what's been happening. Well, let me kind of lean in that direction. Let's see if it goes. Not saying you should adopt it totally. Just use it as another tool in trying to help you decide which team or which game to play or how to play the game. That's the object of the show. We're here to try to make you a better handicapper with little tips like this, keeping data in front of you that's of some use, okay? That's the whole idea of the story. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll let you know how that develops. Meanwhile, let's take a look at 3 games that are on tap for today. Not much of a schedule today because, again, it's a getaway day for many teams. There's only 6 Major League games on tap for today. We're going to take a look at half of them. At 6:35 p.m., the Cincinnati Reds that are 15-16 at Pittsburgh, who are 14-19. Now, this is a National League Central Division game. You got a pair of teams that are looking to escape that lower portion of the division as far as the standings are concerned. The Reds, well, they just split a 2-game series in Cleveland, and the Pirates, they dropped 2 or 3 games against the Cubbies. Now, although they won Sunday's finale 6-5, and in that game they were plus 150 road dogs, by the way. Now, in tonight's first game of the series, the Reds trot out righty Tyler Mahle, 1-1, 3.23 of an ERA. Tyler Mahle. And the Pirates give the ball to Mitch Keller. He's 2-3 with a 6.29 ERA. Now, as we look at the line as it opened today, Cincinnati listed as a minus 140 road favorite, and the Pirates a plus 130 home dog. Now, the public, they're all over the Reds in the early betting. They have a slightly better record. They have a pitcher on the mound with a better numbers as well. So it's not unusual for the general public to go in that direction. However, despite the betting that's been coming in on the Reds, we've actually seen the line drop slightly toward the Pirates, going from a plus 130 on the money line down to a plus 125. Okay, what this means is that the pro money is taking a shot on Pittsburgh because they'd like to get in on some of that plus money at plus 130 or 125. The Pirates have value in this game. They're a contrarian divisional dog, and they're also a dog that's coming off a win. Now, dogs that come off of a win in a divisional series are 5% as a return on investment so far this season. Now, the total in the game is low. It's 8, with this heavy underjuice at minus 120. What that means is that pro money is on the under, along with a possibility, if any more money comes in from them, that may drop from 8 down to 7.5. Now, because we've talked about money lines and how the juice affects what the betting line could be, it gets to a certain point, they test it, and then what they do is instead of going to 125 or 130, they'll drop the line from 8 to 7.5. This is a very common principle that they apply. So in the first game that we're taking a look at, and it's at around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, of course, the pros on the underdog, the Pittsburgh Pirates. In the second game at 7:05, you got the Boston Red Sox 22-13 against the Baltimore Orioles at 15-19. Now, this is the fourth and the final game of this Eastern Division series. So far, the Red Sox are a perfect 3-0. They outscored the Orioles by a combined margin of 21-11. Now, in tonight's final game, the Red Sox send out their lefty, Martin Perez, who is 0-2 so far this season with a 4.40 ERA. And the Orioles start their righty, Jorge Lopez, who is 1-3 with a 6.49 ERA. Now, the line opened with Boston as a minus 143 road favorite. The Orioles are plus 132 home dog. Once again, the public is on the Red Sox to complete the sweep. But as usual, despite all this lopsided action going on to the Red Sox, the line has either stayed the same or dropped down toward Baltimore. It dropped from being a plus 132 down to a plus 128. Not much of a move. It's still a 4-point move. It's pretty good. And it also shows that the pros doing what we call a sharp line freeze. And there is some reverse line movement on the home dog as well. Because Baltimore in this game, they have value. They're a divisional dog this season. And they're a sweet spot dog, which means they're at plus 140 on the money line or less, which has been very, very fruitful so far this season. Now, we could also be looking at a lower scoring game. The total in this game is 9.5. You have heavy juice on the under at plus 120, which means there's liability on the under, and it may also drop as the other game down to 9. Now, the forecast calls for temperatures in the low 60s with the wind blowing in from left center at 10 miles per hour. So there's a good possibility the unders may have a little shot here in this game. So the Red Sox against the Orioles once again, and it's not unusual. The pros are on the dog in this game as well. In the first game, again, the Pirates and the Reds, the pros are on the Pirates. The Orioles and the Red Sox, the pros are on Baltimore. We have one more game to look at, and that's the Texas Rangers and the San Francisco Giants. That game is about 9:45, almost 10 o'clock at night. What we're going to do is going to take our second break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at that game and then bring you up to date as to how our little system has been working out so far. So just a reminder that you're in the sports wagering zone, but of course we will be back right after this. And welcome back. Here we go again. We're back in the sports wagering zone, coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Also, some of you listening to us on Spotify or Spreaker or Apple Podcasts, we're there as well. So thank you very much for listening. Just to let you know, we totally appreciate your listening to the show. So we covered 3 games today for tonight and the slate this afternoon. The first game we looked at was Cincinnati against Pittsburgh. In that particular game, the pros and the analytics on the Pittsburgh Pirates as an underdog. And, of course, the Red Sox against the Orioles. That particular game, the analytics and the pros are on the underdog Orioles as well. Finally, at 9:45 p.m. Eastern Time, you got the Texas Rangers and the San Francisco Giants. Rangers are at 18-18. They're at 500. The Giants 20-14. Now, both of these interleague teams have played pretty good lately. The Rangers just took 2 or 3 at home against the Mariners. The Giants took 2 or 3 against the Padres at home. But in tonight's series opener, the Rangers come in with their veteran righty, Kyle Gibson, who's undefeated this season. He's 3-0, has a 2.40 ERA. And the Giants, they come back with Alex Wood. He's undefeated this season at 3-0 with a 1.96 ERA, slightly better. Now, as we look at the line, it opened with the Giants a short minus 135 on the money line as a home favorite, and the Rangers a plus 125 as a road dog. Now, the pros seem to be leaning to the Giants. We've seen San Francisco tick up from being a minus 135 to a minus 140. Now, teams that have a line movement in their favor, especially during interleague play, are at 59% this season. Once again, teams that have a line movement in their favor, and it's an interleague game, okay, they're at 59% so far this season. The Giants also have value because they're a favorite with a low total. The total in this game is at 7. Now, once again, we talked about this before. Historically speaking, low totals usually benefit the favorites because there's an anticipation that there'll be less runs scored. And if they're going to be scored, it's going to come from the team with the better team or the better pitcher, the better hitters, have the better record. So it kind of leans in that direction. The Giants are a plus 27 in run differential this season. The Rangers are minus 4. San Francisco is 12-4 at home. That's the best home record in Major League Baseball. So in this final game at 9:45 between the Rangers and the Giants, the pros are on the favorite as well as the analytics in this game. They're on the San Francisco Giants. So once again, just to recap the 3 games for today, the Reds against the Pirates, the pros and the analytics are on the Pirates. As far as the Red Sox and the Orioles are concerned, once again, the analytics and the pros on the underdog, the Baltimore Orioles. And finally, in the 9:45 game, the Rangers against the Giants, the pros are on the favorite in this game, the San Francisco Giants. So that's the story as far as the 3 games are for today. Those are the analytical information you might need, as well as knowing which direction the pro money is going as well. Now, should you follow this method or not? I leave that totally up to you. All I can tell you is bring you up to date on them every day, let you know what they are, and also kind of let you know how it's been doing so far this season. To give you an idea, yesterday's games, we had 3 selections. One of them happened to be postponed, and that was the Tigers and the Twins game was postponed because of the virus. Meanwhile, in the Washington Yankees game, the system had the New York Yankees, and they won. And, of course, the Milwaukee-Miami game, that was the loser because we had Miami. So we had 1 win and 1 loss as of yesterday. So totally so far for the entire season, we've had 104 plays, counting yesterday. We had 57 winners. And, of course, we also had some losers as well. Comes out to a total of 54.8%. Not a bad number as far as that's concerned. Now, if for some reason, if you like these games, you can bet them. If you don't, just keep that information in mind, kind of give an idea as to what's going on. But as always, we leave it up to you to make the final decision. So that's why when we're talking to people about these games that we give you every day, would it be a good idea to find out what the line is, say at 9 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, as opposed to finding it out at 12 noon, let's say, because, hey, you're ready, you're going to be going to work. This way, at least you have an idea as to what the line is, which direction it's going, and perhaps helps you to make a decision as to who you're going to play later on in the day. If you feel that way and you'd like to have that type of information, that's the type of things we'll put into our newsletter that we're hopefully going to be putting together to make available to you. Once again, if you might be interested in it, by all means, send us an email. Send it to the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. That's the Sports Wagering Zone at gmail.com. All you have to do is say, yes, I'm interested. We'll file you away. If things come out and we do it, we'll announce it. We'll let you know about it at that point in time, okay? So we're going to take our final break for the day, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at the futures market, take a look at what the game totals are so far, so you can start getting ready for Wednesday for when the schedule comes out. So we'll be back into the zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. We're back into the final segment of the Sports Wagering Zone on this Monday afternoon, Monday morning, again, depending on which time zone you happen to be in. So we took a look at 3 games. We'll recap them before we finish the show. But in the meantime, let's take a little look at some futures information as far as team totals are concerned. Once again, if you haven't placed a bet yet on team totals, hold off until Wednesday. Take a look and see what the schedule is. The scheduling is going to be very important, because if you have a team that's coming off of a bye week, taking on a weaker team, they're more likely to win that game. Whereas if they're playing a stronger team, maybe that'd be a contender or something of that nature. So you got to keep an eye on it. Some teams do better in September and October. Some teams do better in December. That's up to you to decide what they're going to be. But so far right now, taking a look as far as Fox Sports Bets is concerned, Buffalo, the over under their number is 10.5. New England is at 9.5. Miami is at 8.5. And of course, the Jets at 6.5. Now, keep in mind also, in the past, if you've been playing game totals, you had 16 games. You've got 1 extra game being added this season. So keep that in mind when you see these numbers coming up. The Jets at 6.5. Well, you got to take a look at it. This kid's getting a lot of publicity. There's a lot of hype. Depending on how the schedule is set up and who they play when, Jets may not be a bad look at it. 6.5 on the over side, okay? Meanwhile, Baltimore is at 11.5. Cleveland's at 9.5. Pittsburgh at 8.5. And Cincinnati at 6.5. Now, the question is, how will Cincinnati perform? They're at 6.5. Burrows is coming back off an injury. They picked up a wide receiver. They picked up people to play, make him better. They picked up some linemen to help protect him. One team that you might want to take a closer look at, Cleveland. I've heard 9.5 is low. Listening to various sports shows, some guys seem to think that Cleveland at 9.5 is a good buy if you go to the over on it. Again, that's up to you. Some of these numbers may change once the schedule comes out and people start looking at it. So if some of these numbers agree that you agree with, you might want to make your bet beforehand. But if not, I would strongly recommend waiting until Wednesday to see what the schedule is. Meanwhile, Indianapolis is at 9.5. Tennessee's at 9.5. Jacksonville at 6.5. Houston at the bottom of the list at 4.5. Meanwhile, out west, Kansas City, you know them, they're going to be on top. They're at 12.5. Do you think out of 17 games, they're going to win 12.5 games? Well, if you're going to be looking at that particular team, definitely wait for Wednesday. See what their schedule is. Who are they going to play after their bye week? Who are they playing before they go into their bye week? That number is high. It's doable, no doubt about it. But I would take a look at the schedule just to make sure of that situation. Meanwhile, Los Angeles, 9.5. Denver is 8.5. And, of course, Vegas is at 7.5. Now, Denver, here you might want to take a shot. You're at 8.5. There's always these rumors going on about Rodgers being possibly going to Denver. Well, you know that number is going to change if it does happen. If it doesn't happen, it's going to stay there, maybe even drop a bit come Wednesday. Meanwhile, over in the National Conference, in the East, Dallas is on top, 9.5. Washington at 8.5, the Giants at 7.5, and the Eagles at 6.5. In the Northern Division, Green Bay, at some places, Green Bay is not even on the docket. They're just holding off, waiting to see what happens. It's off the board. But if you can get them at your location right now, Green Bay is still at 10.5 at the places that have it. Minnesota, 8.5. Chicago, 7.5. Detroit, 5.5. Meanwhile, in the South, we all know Tampa, 11.5. New Orleans, 9.5. Atlanta, 7.5. And Carolina at 7.5. Out west, you have LA on top. The Rams are 10.5, but they're tied with the 49ers now at 10.5. Seattle's at 9.5. And Arizona brings up the bottom out west at 8.5. So those are the over-under totals as far as the futures market is concerned. It may vary slightly depending on what part of the country you live in. These numbers are out of Vegas, so kind of keep that in mind. You might have a half-point difference. Like if you go into New York, there might be a different line for the Jets and the Giants. Or if you live near Pittsburgh, they may have a different line. So you have to kind of take a look at it from a perspective of your own betting situation. So that's the story on that. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens Wednesday. Thursday, we'll try to make some comment on it one way or another. We'll see how that goes. In the meantime, once again, let's take a look at the 3 games on tap for today as far as baseball is concerned. The early game at 6:35, you got the Reds against the Pirates, the Pros and the Analytics on the underdog Pirates in that game. Orioles against the Red Sox, the Pros and the Analytics on the Orioles, the underdog in that game as well. And then finally, in the night game around 9:45, Rangers against the Giants. The Pros in that particular game are on the favorite, the San Francisco Giants. So that's the story as far as that's concerned. Once again, thank you very much for listening. It's Monday. It's the beginning of the week. Take a look at those 3 games. Perhaps you were thinking about betting one of those games anyway. Take the information we give you, use whatever it is you need to help you make your final decision. So until tomorrow at 12 noon, we're here every day, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. each noontime Eastern time. We used to be on at 4. We went to 12 o'clock a couple of weeks ago, and every now and then that number pops up. But it's 12 noon Eastern time. Of course, on weekends, we're here at 11 a.m. Eastern time as well. So until tomorrow, if you're going to be betting today, I wish you the best of luck. We really want you to win. There's no doubt about it. And, of course, if you're not, sit back, relax, watch some of the games, take a look at your numbers because once again, talking about the schedule coming out on Wednesday. That'll help you in that direction. So have a very pleasant Monday. But more importantly than pleasant, if you're betting, I hope you have a profitable one as well. So until tomorrow at 12 noon, coming to you live from the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Goodbye, everybody, and talk to you then.